They can't save us. It's gone too far. And instead of fixing the problem, they just kept making the problem worse. That's what I know. And I was told, don't do that anymore because we'll kill you. People started playing games, and now the game is out of control. The world's never going to be the same. I hope I'm wrong. We're going to go bankrupt. There'll probably be a new conference like the Louvre Accord or the Smithsonian Accord, and they're going to rewrite the rules of the game again. They're going to say, okay, the US dollar, you're toast, and IMF's going to jump in, China's going to jump in. But meanwhile, you and I, if you're holding dollars, you might be in serious trouble. Well, he warned me that the world would change, and I didn't really understand it at the time. Some of the nasty threats I've gotten. You better watch out, because I criticize vaccines. And I've studied vaccines. I kind of know what they do. The primary reasons vaccines are so profitable is because when they brought them out, you cannot be sued. The drug big pharma cannot be sued for any failure of the vaccine. So the vaccine is 10 million people. The drug company, ABC, big pharma, i.e. Merck and those guys, they can't be sued. And then what they do is they produce the vaccine and then they get somebody like Trump or Obama to push it. That's what I know. That's the freedom of speech. But so is being politically correct. PC is you violate the First Amendment, the freedom of speech. Another thing that's been violated is the right to assembly. Social distancing and shutting down businesses is a violation of the First Amendment. So our rights are being ripped out of our hands right now, and that disturbs me. So that's what you got to be careful today, because freedom of speech is gone. One of my tweets was New York City going broke, and the reason New York City is going broke is much of the property in New York City is commercial real estate. I own residential real estate, so we're doing pretty good. But in commercial real estate, with everybody zooming away and at home and all this, the question is, who's going to go back to work? Who wants to pay that high price for that commercial real estate? But worst of all, what value is commercial real estate, like an office building, if you don't have workers in it? All cities count on real estate taxes. So what you're going to see in the next few years is real estate taxes on your home. My apartments will go up. But when New York taxes those commercial high-rise buildings, more tenants will leave. So New York City is going broke. The beautiful city of Vancouver, Canada, is flat broke. That's tragic what's happening, because you have these incompetent city managers who are just like my poor dad, guys with college degrees, but no common sense. You know what I mean? All the cities now count on taxes, but if a small business is closing and big commercial real estate starts closing, our cities are going broke. You add to that pensions. Pensions, mark my words, I wrote my book called Who Stole My Pension? Pensions are going to be the biggest disaster hitting America and the world today. And I was told, don't do that anymore because we'll kill you. My friend who's a doctor says they will. So that's what concerns me. I'm in for the freedom of speech, and I agree that people can disagree. Everybody has their own opinion. But to threaten somebody with death and all that, that's a little too far. People started playing games, and now the game is out of control. This crisis, as I call it, it's a smokescreen for something that's been going on for years. The biggest crisis is the financial crisis. And your generation of millennials have been screwed. Big time. If you understand how money is credit and debt. That's all it is. Credit, debt, and taxes. That's what money really is. But they don't teach you that in school. So today, the reason the world economy is crashing goes all the way back to 71. But what happened in 71, they could just make fake money. And they can keep printing fake money. This is the US dollar. The US can keep printing fake money for a number of years yet. And the only way they could keep the economy expanding, they had to find people stupid enough to get into debt. If a newspaper, and this starts with the Los Angeles Times, New York Times, if they say something their advertisers don't do, they get shut down. So now these big newspapers, they are censored, determined by the advertisers. The same as this Dr. Atkins, this carbohydrate revolution. And across the world, there's 2 billion old guys like me who have no money, and who's going to bail them out? And no Republican or Democrat is going to say we're not going to pay the old guys money. So that means the old guys, they're going to say, you got to bail us out. And so naturally, they're going to print more money and pay the old guys just so they get reelected. So it's real estate taxes, it's small businesses going broke, It's income taxes going down and pensions going down. Well, the Fed has to print more money. So that's why I keep saying buy gold, silver, and Bitcoin, because gold is getting more scarce. So let me explain why gold. So my prediction is gold in 1 year should be $3,000. That's about $1,000 more than it is today. So in a year, it should be up another 1,000. Some people say 2,500 is optimistic. But I'd rather have the price of gold going up than your money going down. So if you're saving money, I'll pray for you tonight, because your savings are actually real money. In other words, if you worked for it and you paid the taxes on that money you worked for, that's real legitimate money. Unfortunately, the Fed is printing trillions, and they're going to pay you nothing for your savings. I mean, when I was a kid, I got 15% on my savings. Today, you get nothing. So the Fed is screwing you. That's the term. So I think gold at $3,000, not outside the box. Silver, $40. And the reason I like silver is silver's moving faster than gold today. Silver used to be about $49. And today I think it's 18. So it's about 70% below its all-time high. So silver is the best deal of all. And I think most of you can afford a $20 silver coin. If you can't, you have deep problems. The reason I like Bitcoin is because what I understand about Bitcoin is that they had a halving. And a halving means they print less of it. At the same time, Bitcoin is printing less, the Fed is printing trillions. Now, you don't need a degree in rocket science to figure that one out. The Fed is making the US dollar, or any currency, the yen, the euro, the peso, softer. Bitcoin is getting harder. Gold is getting harder. Silver is getting harder. I don't buy gold, silver, and Bitcoin to get rich. I just hate getting screwed by the Federal Reserve Bank and the Treasury. So if you want to keep saving money and putting it in the stock market, more power to you. But all that paper stuff is printed. And the CEOs of these stock market companies, they did a side deal with the Fed. So the Fed was loaning them billions of dollars for them to jack their stock price up. So the stock prices are at this artificial high. And all mom and pop are watching their 401ks or IRAs, and the stocks are this high. And the Fed keeps printing more money, keeps giving the CEOs indirectly, because they can't do it directly. They do it through what's called SRVs, special something vehicle. And they give the CEOs the money, and they pop the stock market up. That's why we're in serious trouble.
Freedom of speech doesn't mean we have to tell the truth. You see, just because, when I read a financial from a stock company or for a company, they can lie. In fact, accounting is just not a lie, but one big distortion. You've got to understand how the numbers are making the story look good or making the story look bad. Many real estate investors, they'll actually take what's called a pro forma, which is, BS, blue sky.
Well, the people that'll get hammered, I'm writing this paper right now. It's taking me 4 months because it's a tough paper. It's called The Brave New World. And what this crisis represents is we're going into a brave new world. As I said in prophecy, I said it would come in 2016, but I didn't foresee. I started prophecy in 1999, but I didn't foresee quantitative easing and zero interest rates. I didn't foresee how desperate our leaders are, the Federal Reserve Bank, the Treasury, Wall Street, and even putting students in debt. I cannot believe how desperate people are. Everybody's so desperate because this world, starting from 1971, is so deeply in debt. The world's never going to be the same. As a kid, it's called a credit card. Now everybody has credit cards, but they never teach you how to use it. Why did they have a credit card? It's because they needed more money. So they keep expanding the economy. They keep finding people stupid enough to just get into debt. To give them credit cards and all this and say, well, you give auto loans. But I think the most dastardly thing for your generation was in 2009, when President Obama went to the banks and said, look, we need to get the students more into debt under the guise of you need to get a good education. I don't know if you understand money, but there's only 4.5 trillion in base money, M1. There's about 225 trillion in debt. That means there's only 4.5 trillion for 225 trillion in debt. The machine's going to stop soon. I don't know when, but it's going to stop. And when it comes to a stop, that's when my gold, silver, and Bitcoin will go through the roof. So going back to 1971, this financial crisis is now showing up. And it's your generation that will inherit a pile of duck doo-doo.
Inflation is here to stay.
It is here to stay. And the problem with inflation, this is my personal thing about it, it makes the rich richer, but it makes the poor poor. I mean, literally poor. And then the middle class gets hit the hardest. And the thing that concerns me is, and revolution starts when the poor can't survive. Because, like when you go to the store and a piece of celery is $20 and today it's oil. So the question today is, what do you do? How do you hedge against what's coming? Because when Biden, when that commie Biden cut off the XL pipeline, the price of oil went through the roof. I was buying oil at $30 a barrel, or selling oil at $30 a barrel, and then it went to $130 a barrel. So I got really rich, but it wipes out everybody else. And that's why then Biden has the guts to blame Putin for it. I'm going, wait a minute, you're the guy that cut off the pipeline. This guy Biden is and if you understand how the dollar is created, you'd be at Vancouver, because 1944, the US dollar became the reserve currency of the world. What that is a thing called Triffin's dilemma. That means we're always short of dollars. So they have to keep printing, and they'll always print. The system is flawed. This is our time. And so, ladies and gentlemen, this is not a political show. We're not CNN, and we're definitely not Fox. But we better start paying attention. So that's why I wanted to have Jay Martin on here, because he's in the heart of resource country, which is Vancouver, British Columbia.
It's time, if you're not paying attention, if you're still riding the default mode, it's time to start paying attention and taking control, because exactly what you just said, right? If we thought consumer inflation has been bad and caused, disgruntled civil unrest, just wait until we see food and fuel riots in the streets. And I've never been a doom and gloom guy. That's not what I am. I'm an investor. I'm looking to make money. I think the rest of the 2020s will be like the first 2 years of the 2020s, right? Unprecedented is the new precedented. And this is just getting started.
Correct. And we both have some really stellar leaders. You have Trudeau and we have Biden. I mean, the communist way is to kill many people as possible. I'm a Vietnam veteran, and I saw Vietnamese killing Vietnamese. And that's just not part of our psyche. But the trouble with communism, or what you can see in the Ukraine, they'll shell housing, they'll shell women and kids and all this. They don't care. It's murder in my book, but as a U.S. Marine, we go to jail for that. But the communist system it's okay to murder your fellow human being. And so that's why it's dangerous. But more than so, other than just that, how do you protect yourself from them killing us in our wallets? What Biden's doing and Trudeau's doing, they're a bunch of hardcore communists. They may not know it, but what they're doing is making it really tough on the poor and middle class, aren't they?
Yeah, 100%. And that communist manifesto is always sold under the guise of community and togetherness, and we're going to have each other's back. And any student of history knows that's never how it goes. And repeatedly, it's sold to the public, and the public accepts it. Isn't that wild? How many times do we need to learn this lesson? But we're going that direction, and it's somewhat horrifying. And so what do, right? My answer is optionality. I need options, right? And so whether that's stores of wealth in a variety of safe haven asset classes, I'm heavy gold, silver, Bitcoin, I'm heavy real estate. But beyond that, we're optioning our US passports. I'm Canadian American, my family's dual, right? And I want the optionality of a couple geographies, to be honest with you.
Right. I'm an oil guy. I own lots of oil. And like I said, we were selling it for $30 a barrel, then it went to 100, I think today's 105 a barrel. So I'm making a lot of money.
It was $70 to fill up my tank today. That's so ridiculous. It's double what it was 2 years ago.
And the way, I don't know if you know this, but oil provides fertilizer. And fertilizer is what keeps the crops growing. So you're going to see food prices climb, and then the cost of getting the food to the supermarkets and all this, it just gets to be worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And so that's when Biden cut off the pipeline. He made me a rich man. Then he blames Putin for it. I'm going, what? These guys are cartoons. They're jokes.
Yes. I mean, how much oil and gas actually makes it to the U.S. from Russia? It's less than 10%, right? And the U.S. has lots of options to produce more natural gas and oil.
But Biden cuts it off here. He's cutting our oil supply. I mean, I produce oil, so I'm not concerned at all, but he cut the production of America down. The biggest problem is, for the last few years, all wars are about oil. What happened to Pearl Harbor, they bombed Pearl Harbor because Roosevelt cut off oil. Yeah. And they said, you screw you, we're going to bomb you. So I watch what's happening in the Ukraine, and then Biden goes to Saudi Arabia, And then this was the biggest thing of all, Jay. I don't think anybody saw it. Saudi Arabia agreed to sell China oil and trade in the yuan, the Chinese currency.
I don't like the direction things are going, but I don't know of a currency that holds more influence on the global stage or that will.
I don't think people know the history of the dollar. It's a petrodollar. The U.S. dollar is what everybody trades, not only in food and stuff like that, but they traded oil in dollars. The moment that they start accepting yuan, I mean, why doesn't Biden, I guess his family does work for the Chinese government, don't they? But the point here is this, what are you going to do about it? I just took a position in one of the largest gold mines in the world, in world history. And I'm very bullish on gold. I mean, we have control of tons of gold, not just ounces. And because to me, gold has been money since God came around. Gold and silver are God's money. Bitcoin is people's money. And so that's why I watch the dollar, and I still see Americans saving dollars or Canadians. You know, I'm going, what the heck are people? Are they nuts?
If and when I hold cash, it's strictly to capitalize on opportunities, like you said, right? You're building a position in one of the world's largest gold mines for that reason. And I've been heavier cash over the last 6 months than ever before. And the reason was, Robert, I really struggled to find value anywhere, right? It was like I'm heavyweight and continuing to buy gold and silver.
If you can't find a deal and you're stacking with cash, because of course Biden printed on how many trillions, they're printing so much cash. What is that going to do to real assets? Real estate's in a bubble, stock market's in a bubble. Where do you put your cash? But I can start a gold mine. So I started several gold mines, several silver mines. And please, anybody who is into the stock market and real estate market right now, or even worse, somebody who believes in saving dollars or loonies, Canadian dollar or yen or pesos, I don't know if you understand here that they're printing trillions of it. And when Biden shut down the XL pipeline, I went, oh my God, that guy is a communist. Because when he shut down the pipeline, we knew inflation was going through the roof. And so anyway, we're talking about how do you play this, because they're going to keep printing money. They have to. I mean, I just can't imagine. So if you're saving dollars, and we're in the biggest bubble of all time, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, real estate, biggest bubble. To me, the best investment is still silver, gold, and oil, and Bitcoin or crypto.
There's one asset class that has survived the rise and fall of hundreds of empires and thousands of market cycles, and that's gold. And yes, I'm bullish Bitcoin, but it hasn't proven itself in all sorts of environments yet, whereas gold has always retained its value.
Well, gold is God's money. It was put here by God, same as silver. I do know it's on the periodical chart of elements. In the next 50 to 100,000 years, resources will always be a play. Like Russia is one of the biggest resource producers, so is China. And Canada, Vancouver, British Columbia is a major resource producer. I'm an extremely rich man today. Extremely. And I have oil. I'm getting richer every time Biden opens his stupid mouth. But resources is how the rich get richer. This is the bad side. The poor get poorer too. Big time. Years and years ago, 25 years ago, I was one of those guys standing there with my little junior mine. And I hit two. I hit one in Argentina and I hit one in China. And that little Chinese mine turned into the biggest mine in Chinese history. For about a good year, I was a billionaire just from this one mine in China. And the Chinese said, thank you very much. So I stopped eating Chinese food after that.
And what happened to you is a very common story, right? You know, and I think more so now than ever, you got to look at the geopolitical risk.
And I'm glad my little Argentine mine is still kicking off silver, so that's working well. They didn't take that yet. Jay just said a very important point here is it's called geopolitical. I call it country risk. So if somebody says, well, the mine is in Iran, I'd say, well, I'll pass. So yeah, but it's the biggest in the world, I said, I'll still pass. And that's how you get educated. Because resources, given that inflation is going to be here to stay, resources are going to be your best investment, but it's also, in my opinion, the highest risk. It's the highest risk there is. I was out there in Vancouver in the 80s and 90s. It was just the best education I ever had. And what makes me such a pessimist on Biden and the Treasury and the Fed is what I learned in Vancouver. And it was a really exciting time because gold, oil, and silver are real money. its resources are real money. If you understand that, resources are the next biggest investment. China's buying oil from Saudi Arabia in yuan is a big move to me. It's huge. It means China's saying, F you, US dollar. That's what it means to me. And mommy and daddy are still out there trying to save a few dollars, work hard and get a pay raise for $15 an hour. They're completely out of touch with what's going on in the world. When Biden is in charge and the way the dollar is set up, the dollar always loses money. It's called Triffin's dilemma. If you're the reserve currency of the world, the dollar always loses value because debt always goes up. So the Fed has to keep printing, the Treasury has to keep printing. The rich don't work for money, rich don't save money because the dollar is fake. The US dollar is fake. All currencies are fake. That's how I think today.